Dear Venice Beach family, I call you family because a family is a group that dreams, laughs, plays, and loves together during the good times and the bad. And we've definitely had a lot of both in 2020. I moved to LA in February 2018, and a friend took me to Old Muscle Beach a week later. That's when I knew I had to move to the West Side. After living near downtown for 6 months, I applied to 3 places on the beach that all fell through last minute. One landlord changed his mind an hour before I was supposed to get the keys and already had my moving truck packed. But it showed me how much renters need to be able to see reviews of landlords too on myrenterreport.com. After that heartbreak, I gave up on the West Side for a while and lived everywhere from the Valley to the Inland Empire. But after raising our first round of funding at the beginning of 2020, I decided that come hell or high water, I was going to move to the West Side by March. I'm happy to say I moved to Venice February 23rd, knowing no one. So I set a sunset alarm and went out to watch it every night. I was hoping that neighbors would recognize me and start saying hi. 3 weeks later, the beach was shut down because of COVID, but I never would have thought that during a global pandemic, riots only blocks from our house, and losing 2 loved ones in the same week, that 2020 would still be one of the best years of my life.
Totally foggy over on that side. Get in front of it and like try and
Shortly after quarantine started, my roomie and I were picking up trash on the beach at sunset when she saw someone she knew from volleyball who was enjoying the sunset with a bunch of neighbors. From that night on, we all started watching it together at the end of our street, Sunset Avenue. Tony and Will started inviting people to Sunset on Sunset, and our group just kept growing. I will forever howl at breathtaking sunsets now.
some air.
Since you guys were always skateboarding, I decided to bring out my balance board one evening and get some exercise too. I love how everyone wanted to try it. One evening, Chuck set up a slack line. It was so challenging that James started setting up his line during the day so we could practice more. That's when I knew I had met the right people in the neighborhood. Fellow philomaths. That's when our group evolved from Sunset on Sunset to the Sunset Circus. Research from Brigham Young University says loneliness is as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Sadly, it's too common for someone to feel lonely living in a city of 12 million people. Who would have thought, through social distancing in the highly transient and notoriously flaky city of Los Angeles, that we would build foundations for lifelong friendship? In her book, Friends and Frientimacy, Shasta Nelson explains there are 3 components to build meaningful relationships that fill you up so you don't feel lonely. The first pillar is consistency. Sunsets are the glue that brought us together and still is. Even if it's not as strong because quarantine is over and people have gone back to work, there's still a good chance of running into a familiar face if you peruse the boardwalk around sunset. The fact most of us are within walking distance means we run into each other more often too. I tell people LA traffic sucks if you're not lane splitting on a motorcycle, but Venice traffic is the best because it means you ran into a friend. One time, a date and I were talking in his car with the light on too long and his battery died. I swear we were just talking. You guys know how picky I am about even kissing a guy. Thankfully, Will and Tony were up at 1 a.m. and had jumper cables. While we're in the parking lot, Cal stops by on his scooter and tells us about the cougar whose house he had just left. Then Aaron hollers at us from his balcony. My date said our neighborhood feels like a college campus. The next pillar you need to build fulfilling friendships is positivity. Someone once told me they loved Venice so much because you could be whoever you want. That's because it truly is a judgment-free zone. Never in my life did I think I would feel comfortable being around so many hot guys without makeup. Or wear a thong in public. Yet you beach unicorns gave me the courage, and you guys made me feel safe enough to let my pasty buns get more sunlight than they ever have in my entire life. I also love how we challenge each other in positive ways. Like James saying he bets I can do a turn by the time the sun goes down, or Ash encouraging me to break my personal record and take 9 steps backwards on the slack line today. But the best challenge you guys set me up for this year was Raph encouraging me to confront one of my biggest fears since I was 5 years old, skateboarding. The last time ended in stitches, but borrowing new skateboards to practice and all of the tips and encouragement from you guys made me feel comfortable to confront my fear head on, which boosted my self-confidence a ton this year. The most positive thing about our neighborhood, though, is how much we cheer each other on. I'll never forget how Nick got everyone chanting, "Grant, Grant, Grant," when I introduced my cousin before we watched a short during an outdoor movie night. But the secret to why I learned so many skills this year is because you guys don't just applaud the wins, you applaud the effort too. Even when I had a bad fall on the balance board and sprained my wrist, you guys patted me on the back and said, "Good try." You all have growth mindsets and made me feel comfortable trying new things, even if that meant making a complete fool out of myself. This year was emotional for the whole world, and with our close proximity to each other, it was harder to be a hermit without you guys noticing. This forced me to be more open and vulnerable, the third pillar needed to build fulfilling relationships. Thank you for holding space for me whenever I needed it, especially when I cried uncontrollably on your shoulder after my friend passed, Anais, and when we stayed up talking until the sun came up, Meg. Social distancing made me forget how much I love hugs. After a few weeks without them, Tony and Will reminded me the healing power of a hug. In fact, too much sometimes with one of your ragdoll hugs that almost made me fall over. I can't thank you enough for making hugs the standard way we say hi and bye, and making me feel safe enough to ask any of you for a hug when the world feels heavy. One of the most memorable hugs for me was the first night we could watch the sunsets again after curfews were lifted because of the riots. We had a big, healing group hug. As an uber independent person, I was surprised how quickly we started asking each other for help, a very vulnerable thing for me usually. But when people would ask and offer things in the group chat, it gave me courage to ask too. Thank you, Aaron, for helping me grease my motorcycle chain. That's so hard to do on my own. I'm still bummed Black Beauty and I weren't able to make a debut in your movie, but I can't wait to have an outdoor movie night and watch it when it's done. One of my favorite ways we were vulnerable to each other, though, is our mind sports sessions. Even though sometimes it would get heated talking about controversial topics, I loved how what happened there stayed there, and that we shook off the heaviness together afterwards. You guys are all so talented with amazing life experiences from around the world. I didn't feel like I deserved to hang out with such a fascinating group of people because I'm just an average girl from the Midwest. I have no cool skills to teach you, like how to fire breathe, do handstands, play an instrument, or speak another language. When I admitted this to Raph one time, he said, "Everyone that makes it to the beach is special in some way. That means you are too." He's so right. Each one of you is very special, and my life is a lot richer because I know you. Sadly, some of you are moving away in 2021, and I want you to know I'll always cherish playing, laughing, and learning new random talents with you during a year that's definitely going down in history as one of the most emotionally draining for the entire world. My wish for you is that wherever you find yourself, Colorado, El Salvador, Bali, Singapore, that you find a supportive community like you helped create here in Venice Beach with consistency, positivity, and vulnerability. Love, your big sis, Girl with Blue Hair.